Hi again, friends. It's me, Miss Christina, and I'm back with another video with our friends Jack and Annie and Dinosaurs Before Dark. We have read a few chapters. We have met a few dinosaurs. Something fishy is going on. They think that they've traveled to 65 million years ago. And the last page that we read together had this new creature on it. We've already met one dinosaur that Annie named Henry. And now this dinosaur is standing on the hill, and I can't wait to see what happens next. So chapter 5, Gold in the Grass. Go, go, said Jack. He threw his notebook into his pack. He pushed Annie toward the rope ladder. Bye, Henry, she said. Go, said Jack. He gave Annie another push. Quit it, she said, but she started up the ladder. Jack scrambled after her. Jack and Annie tumbled into the treehouse. They were panting as they looked out the window at the dinosaur. It was standing on the hilltop eating flowers off of a tree. Oh man, whispered Jack, we are in a long time ago. The dinosaur looked huge, like a huge rhinoceros, with 3 horns instead of 1. It had 2 long horns above its eyes, and another one grew out from its nose. It had a big shield-like thing behind its head. Triceratops, said Jack. Does he eat people? Whispered Annie. I'll look it up. Jack grabbed the dinosaur book. He flipped through the pages. There, said Jack, pointing to a picture of a Triceratops. He read the caption. The Triceratops lived in the late Cretaceous period. This plant-eating dinosaur weighed over 12,000 pounds. Jack slammed the book shut. Just plants, no meat. Good, said Annie. Let's go see him up close. Are you crazy, said Jack. Don't you want to take notes about him, asked Annie. We're probably the first people in the whole world to ever see a real-life Triceratops. Jack sighed. Annie was right. Okay, let's go, he said. Jack shoved the dinosaur book into his pack. He slung his pack over his shoulder. Annie started down the ladder, and Jack went after her. Just promise you won't pet him, Jack called down to Annie. I promise, said Annie. Promise you won't kiss him. I promise, said Annie. Promise you won't talk to him. I promise, said Annie. Promise you won't. Don't worry, said Annie. Annie and Jack stepped off the ladder. The pteranodon gave them a friendly look. Annie blew him a kiss. Be back soon, Henry, she called. Shh, said Jack, and led the way slowly and carefully through the ferns. When Jack and Annie reached the bottom of the hill, they knelt behind a bush. Annie started to speak, but Jack quickly put his finger to his lips. Then he and Annie peeked out at the Triceratops. The dinosaur was bigger than a truck. He was eating the flowers off a magnolia tree. Jack slipped his notebook out of his pack. He wrote, "Eats flowers." Annie nudged him. Jack ignored her. He studied the Triceratops again. He wrote, "Eats slowly." Annie nudged him harder. Jack looked at her. Annie pointed to herself. She walked her fingers through the air. She pointed to the dinosaur. She smiled. Is she teasing, Jack wondered? Annie waved at Jack. Jack started to grab her. She laughed and jumped away. He fell into the grass in full view of the Triceratops. Get back, whispered Jack. Too late. The big dinosaur had spotted Annie. He gazed down at her from the hilltop. Half a magnolia flower was sticking out of its mouth. Oops, said Annie. Get back, Jack said again. He looks nice, Jack, Annie said. Nice? Watch out for his horns, Annie, said Jack. The Triceratops gazed calmly down at Annie. Then he turned and loped down the side of the hill. Bye, said Annie. She turned back to Jack. See? Jack grunted, but he wrote down in his book, nice. Come on, let's look around some more. As Jack started after Annie, he saw something glittering in the tall grass. Jack reached down and picked it up. It was a gold medallion. A letter was engraved on the medallion, a fancy M. "Oh man, someone was here before us," Jack said softly. Chapter 6, Dinosaur Valley. Shall we keep reading? Maybe we'll find out more. How does he know that there was a human there before? He found something, and how does he know? Chapter 6, Dinosaur Valley. "Annie, look at this," Jack called. "Look what I found." Annie had gone to the hilltop, up to the hilltop. She was picking a flower off the magnolia tree. "Annie, look, a medallion," shouted Jack, but Annie wasn't paying attention to Jack. She was staring at something on the other side of the hill. "Oh, wow," she said, clutching her magnolia flower. She took off down the hill. "Annie, come back," Jack shouted, but Annie had disappeared. "Oh, brother," Jack muttered. He stuffed the gold medallion into his jeans pocket. Then Jack heard Annie shriek. "Ah! Annie!" he said. Jack heard another sound as well, a deep, bellowing sound like a tuba. "Jack, come here, quick," Annie called. Jack raced up the hill. When he got to the top, he gasped. The valley below was filled with nests. Big nests made out of mud. The nests were filled with tiny dinosaurs. Annie was crouching next to one of the nests. Towering over her was a gigantic duck-billed dinosaur. "Don't panic, don't move," said Jack. He stepped slowly down the hill toward Annie. The huge dinosaur was waving her arms and making a tuba sound. Jack stopped. He didn't want to get too close. He knelt on the ground. "Okay, move toward me, slowly," he said. Annie started to stand up. "Don't stand, crawl," said Jack. Clutching her flower, Annie crawled toward Jack. Still bellowing, the duck-billed dinosaur followed her. Annie froze. "Keep going," Jack said again. Annie started crawling again. Jack inched farther down the hill until he was just an arm's distance from Annie. He reached out and grabbed her hand. He pulled Annie toward him. "Stay down," Jack said. He crouched next to her. "Bow your head. Pretend to chew." "Chew?" said Annie. "Yes," said Jack. "I read that's what you do if a mean dog comes at you." "She's no dog, Jack," said Annie. "Just chew," said Jack. Jack and Annie both bowed their heads and pretended to chew. Soon the dinosaur grew quiet. Jack looked up. "I don't think she's mad anymore," he said. "You saved me," said Annie. "Thanks." "You have to use your brain, Annie," said Jack. "You can't just go running into a nest of babies. There's always a mother nearby." Annie stood up. "Annie, don't," said Jack. Too late. Annie held out her magnolia flower to the dinosaur. "I'm sorry I made you worry about your babies," she said. The dinosaur moved closer to Annie. She grabbed the flower from her hand. She reached for another. "No more," said Annie. The dinosaur let out a sad tuba sound. "Ooh." "But there are more flowers up here," Annie said. She pointed to the top of the hill. "I'll get you some." Annie hurried up the hill. The dinosaur waddled after her. Jack quickly looked at the dinosaur babies. Some were crawling out of the nests. "Where are the other mothers?" Jack wondered. Jack took out the dinosaur book. He flipped through the pages. He found a picture of some duck-billed dinosaurs. He read the caption. The Anatosauruses lived in colonies. While a few mothers babysat the nests, others looked for food. So there were probably more mothers close by looking for food. "Hey, Jack," Annie called. Jack looked up. Annie was at the top of the hill feeding magnolia flowers to a giant Anatosaurus. "Guess what?" Annie said. "She's nice too." Suddenly, the Anatosaurus made her terrible tuba sound. Annie crouched down and started to chew. The dinosaur charged down the hill. She seemed afraid of something. Jack put the book on top of his pack. He hurried to Annie. "I wonder why she ran away," said Annie. "We were starting to be friends." Jack looked around. What he saw in the distance almost made him faint. An enormous monster was coming across the plain. There's a picture. I can't see an enormous monster. Can you? There's the Dinosaurs. What's happening? We better keep reading to see if we find out anything more. Oh, there's just a little bit more left for our reading today. The monster was walking on 2 strong legs. It was swinging a long, thick tail and dangling 2 tiny arms. It had a huge head and its jaws were wide open. Even from far away, Jack could see its long, gleaming teeth. Do you know what kind of dinosaur that might be? It says right here at the very end of the chapter, Tyrannosaurus Rex, whispered Jack. Oh my. We're gonna stop there for now, friends, and we'll continue with chapter 7 and 8. 7 is called Ready, Set, Go. I believe that because they just spotted a T-Rex. Yikes. I can't wait to read again with you, friends. I'll see you next time. Bye.